Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Bird, and I lead our responsible AI implementation effort at Microsoft. I am joined by some amazing colleagues that I'm going to invite up in a little bit. And we're going to talk about how we make agentic systems trustworthy, how we make them safe and secure, and make sure that they're staying on task. So first, I'm going to set the stage a little bit. I don't think this is a surprise to anyone here. Everybody is using AI. And this has been true for a couple years. Of course, we keep seeing this grow and deepen. But what's really interesting is we're now also entering into this next wave. Again, probably not a surprise, you've been at Build for 2 days. But we're really seeing agentic AI as this next exciting wave. And while there's many, many opportunities with agents, I think they're a lot of the real promise of what this technology can be, because I don't want a system that I just chat with and have to pay attention to. I want something I can assign tasks to, right? I think the keynote was amazing today in showing that I can just do the GitHub issues that I find not interesting. I can assign to an agent and have it run with that. And we see that we're not the only ones that see this as compelling. Our work trends index that just came out said that 81% of leaders are looking over the next 12 to 18 months to deploy agents alongside their existing workforces. And this is a huge opportunity, but also something that we really have to think about how we're doing this. I don't know about you, but I don't want to just let an agent go running wild in my system without knowing that I can monitor it and I can govern it. And so we're going to show you how to do that today. And again, we're not the only ones. So this great study came out from the University of Melbourne and KPMG. And one thing that's really cool about this study, this year they surveyed 50,000 people worldwide in many, many different countries. And it also happens to have been going for many years now, and so they have data from before ChatGPT. And what we see is, even though people are getting their hands on their AI and they're using it more and they see how powerful it is, we have a growing gap in trust. All of the metrics we care about, are you willing to rely on the AI system? Are you willing to perceive it as trustworthy? These are all going in the wrong direction. And so it's not just a theoretical issue. If we have employers deploying agents alongside their workforce, but people don't trust it. You don't trust this as something you want to collaborate with. You don't trust it as a employee that you want to do. We're really going to limit how much we can get a benefit from this technology. And so we're going to talk about what we do to address this. Now, the International Safety Report that came out as part of the AI Action Summit in Paris has a taxonomy for AI risks that I really like, and I think it works really well for agents. So the first type of risk are malfunctions. And malfunctions are when the AI system is, malfunctioning, but behaving in ways that we don't want it to do. And so this could be that the system is getting confused and going off task. Or this could be that the system hallucinates, right? The systems produce insecure code. Right? Many of these malfunctions we're used to today, and a lot of the sort of safety features that we've been building into Foundry are designed to address these malfunctions. There's also misuses, and misuses can come in 2 flavors. I could misuse an AI system because I don't understand how it's supposed to be used, and so I use it for a task that's inappropriate. Or I could intentionally misuse the AI system. And so a lot of the tools and technologies we're going to show you today are designed to address these 2 risks around malfunctions and misuse. Now, we also have to think about the wider environment. And so that's where systemic risks come in. Systemic risks are talking about the impact, for example, of this technology. And so as we deploy agents alongside people, it's going to change how they work. And so working on how we upskill people, how roles evolve so that they can work hand in hand in AI, that's something that we need to think about on the systemic risk. And Microsoft has a lot of investment in this side of the camp, of course, not alone with Microsoft, but done as the whole ecosystem. And so, for example, we have a LinkedIn Learning course we put out for AI, and we've had huge number of people take this since July, but there's things we're doing with governments and organizations around the world to look at the systemic risks of AI. And so we're not going to talk any more about this in this talk today, but we're going to talk about malfunctions and misuses. And so let's get into some agent-specific malfunctions that are really important that we'll talk about today. One of them, and these are the numbers of people, or percentage of people in the KPMG survey that are concerned about this. And so 77% of people are concerned about agents staying on task and not actually being aligned with what the user intended. 85% are worried about prompt injection attacks. 82% are worried about the agent leaking sensitive data. These are all real malfunctions we're going to talk about today. We also have agent misuses, and so you can have people hijack your agent. You can have agents be used for cybersecurity risk or automating different scams. And so these are all agent misuses that we need to think about when we're developing agent systems. And this is a lot. Fortunately, this is not something that we just have developers do alone. Developers and security and risk teams need to work together to collaborate and address these different types of risks. So we're going to talk about how we close this trust gap together. And the thing is, well, trust is a team sport. We know this. There's no single function that can do it. We all have to collaborate to actually make this work. And so today, I'm going to invite my colleagues who are going to be on my team here to help show how we actually do this in practice. So I have Neta Haiby, who is from our security organization. And Neta is going to be our security professional here helping us secure the system. And Mehrnoosh Sameki is going to be our compliance officer today. So she's going to help me understand the risk I need to address, and I am going to play our role of our developer. And we're going to try this out. So this is new. And so if we look at what we need to do here, we need to have these roles collaborate at every single step of the process. And so it's not that I just work in a silo as a developer and build a system and then toss it over the wall to the security team. Like, we know that this doesn't work, right? There is an entire concept of shift left, and we need to start this stuff earlier in the process rather than waiting until the very end. And so the first step is that we need to work together as we're planning and building an AI system. We need to work together as we're testing and evaluating, and we need to deploy and manage. And these are things that we need to collaborate on, but we have different parts to play in each of these. And so we've developed new tools that we're excited to show you in Foundry and across our security products today that allow us to collaborate through each of these steps. So let's dive into the first one here, which is planning and building. And so at the security and risk level, they're going to help scope the risk and make sure that we look at the posture management of the system and we start from a good place, and that we have identity management in the system. As a developer, I'm going to scope the project. I'm going to select the right tools for the job, the right model. I'm going to make sure I have the right guardrails in place. I'm going to look at recommendations about the posture so that I make sure I'm implementing my system in the right way. And so we're going to go and show you what this looks like in our tools and actually work in practice. I'm going to use my Touch ID. Okay, cool. So here I am in Foundry, and as the developer, this is where I live. This is my home base. And we're going to show you some of this in UI because it's easier to demo. We're also going to show you some code. But as a developer, I might be living regularly in the code side of the house, but the UI is here to help us get started. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that I'm picking the right model. And so there are many, many models out there. We announced exciting new ones here at Build. For example, you can see we now have Grok. And we know that finding the right tool for the job can vary. There's not one model that beats them all. And so the first thing that we have is I can go here and I can look at the model leaderboard. And this helps me decide what model's the right choice. And now the leaderboard here today, if you go look at it, has quality and cost and throughput. But what's new at Build and coming out soon is also safety benchmarks alongside, so you can compare these different dimensions and find the right one for your application. So I'm actually going to go here and browse the leaderboard a little bit more. And so now I can see, so for safety, what we're looking at specifically is an attack success rate. And I can see that GPT-4o Mini is defending against the most attacks. And so, I want my system to be resilient to those at every single layer. And so I'm going to start with GPT-4o. But if I also want to not look at just one dimension, I can actually go, down here, and I can compare across different dimensions, like the quality versus safety, and inspect different models so I can find the right one for me. Now, once I've gone and actually decided on a model, I can build my agent. And I have one that we've already kind of built here. But I want to get a feel for, benchmarks are one thing, but it's not necessarily the prompts that I care about. It's not what my application is going to be doing. So it can help me pick something. It can help me pick something, but I also want to really play around with it and get a feel for if it's doing the right thing. And so maybe I'll play around with it. There we go. Slowly coming up. OK, so I have an agent here. In all of our AI talks, we really like to stick with the Contoso outdoor retail bot. I am obviously a huge fan of camping, and so that's why we really stick with this one. But here is my agent. And actually, sorry, I'm going to show you in the playground how to use this agent. Oh, here, sorry. Oh, sorry. Here's the button I need. So I'm going to try out my agent in the playground. And as I said, I want to get a feel for how it actually works on prompts that I care about. And so I'm going to also notice that for some reason my colleagues who are focused on risk always wear black. And so I'm going to start with my security team wears black. Can you recommend a tent in black? And let's see what they say. Oh, but I didn't turn on the part I wanted to show you, so we're going to have to try that again. So here, the new feature we have is that I can actually test my system against these different metrics I might care about. Is it coherent? Is it fluent? A new one is like agents. One of the ways they can go wrong is they don't understand your intent. I can also look at the risk and safety here. And so we're going to try to rerun that query again. My security team wears black. Can you recommend a tent in black? OK, we'll try this again. And my outdoor agent is going to figure this out for me and start recommending. And they said there are black tents online, but we don't we have some options here. It's going to kind of go and answer this question. But the important part here is that you also get these scores. And so this tells me that it mostly understood my intent to 4 out of 5, and we don't see any safety risk in the response for the application. And so this is helping me understand, like, hey, does it seem to kind of be doing the right thing? So I can decide if I like this. And so the next thing, though, is I really need help to figure out, like, are these the right risk I should look at? These are the ones that are built in. And so, I'm a developer. I'm spending my time thinking about what's going to be so awesome about this agent I built. And so this is where I need help. And Mehrnoosh, you're an expert in risk. Which risk do I need to test my system for?
That is a great question, and that's exactly why we're super excited to announce the first product integration with 2 amazing companies, Credo AI and 𝗦𝗲𝗀, as well as our very own Purview Compliance Manager. So, for example, in both of these platforms, you can register your AI use case. This is the Contoso Enterprise Agent that I'm using in 𝗦𝗲𝗀, and I'm registering it. I'm identifying that this is an AI agent. It's a question answering. The use case is identified here. I also have the full liberty to identify the risk level and the business impact of that and which model is being used by this particular AI agent, which in this case was GPT-4o, which is selected. The fun part is both of these platforms enable the risks to be automatically selected for me, so I don't even need to be super familiar with the space of risk and safety from a development point of view. As I fill that questionnaire, I land in the risk management tab, and as you can see, all of these risks are identified for me, and that's something that I can surface back to you as the AI developer to hopefully give me some evidence for, which I think we're gonna show.
Great. So, I can actually start looking at these risks and see what we need to address in our system. And so one of the things I see right away is I'm going to want to set up some guardrails for the different risks that you're showing me here. And so I can go back to my system here and say, the first thing I'm going to do is we have 3 types of guardrails in our system today. Folks may be familiar with our more traditional safety and security guardrails, and these protect against a variety of things like prompt injection attacks or hallucinations and harmful content. We're also releasing 2 new types of guardrails at Build. The first one is agent-specific guardrails, and so these are coming soon. But what this is a task adherence guardrail that monitors your system as it's going, and if it detects that it's going off task, whether that's because it was confused about my intent or because it's encountered some kind of prompt injection attack or something that's trying to send it off task, then this guardrail is going to go and block that. The other one is data guardrails, and so we mentioned that one of the things people are concerned about is AI agent systems leaking sensitive data, and so we've integrated Purview SDK now into our experiences with agents so that we can directly manage that. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with the traditional guardrails here and say that I want to look and make sure I'm setting the right guardrails for my system, and so I can do this. And here I have the option to, of course, specify for my particular application, I don't see why we need violent content in this or hateful content, so I'm going to set this to filter starting at the lowest severities. I want to make sure that my system is protecting both against prompt injection attacks that are coming through the user interface, these are also called jailbreaks, and indirect prompt injection attacks, which are coming through the tool calls or the data or things that agents see. And so we've extended this capability specifically for agents, and I can tell you a bit more about that. I want to do the same thing on the output. I want to make sure that my system is not allowing the agent to produce this kind of information. I want to make sure that it's blocking copyright text. I don't think I'm going to have code, so I don't really need to turn that on. I, of course, can do any custom block lists. I can attach this to the deployment that I'm using directly here, and then go and replace, and we're good to go. Now, on top of that, I mentioned that we have new types of guardrails specifically focused on data. So I can go here and use the Purview API and integrate this directly into my agent. And what this does is allow it to follow my organization's data policies. And so once I've integrated this, Neta, I think that it's going to do the right thing by data, but I don't really understand how. So can you, explain a bit more to me? What do I need to do to protect my data?
Yeah, so let me switch to the screen. So here we extended Microsoft Purview to support Azure AI and custom AI application built into the Azure AI Foundry. So once Sarah here enabled the data security, I have here a detect sensitive info policy that is applied org-wise to all users and all agents. And it detects sensitive data like US social security numbers, credit cards, passports, and additional information. So once Sarah enabled this, Purview policies apply to that agent and any other agent that is enabled with this code in the organization. Now, another great thing that I can see, in addition to the policy in Purview, is that we released agent IDs. So now one of the concerns is agent sprawl in the organization. But now me as a security, I can go into the Enter Admin Center and filter with the new agent ID and apply that. And I can see now all the agents in my organization, the custom, the Copilot Studio ones and the Azure AI ones, to know which agents are available. And I can also delete them if they're creating harm or if I don't need them. So I get a full view of all the agents. And Sarah basically just created an agent. She didn't, the idea is applied automatically in order to provide agent sprawl and in order to enable agents to get an ID, have least agency, and be secure from the start.
So any agent I make, you're going to be able to see it here in Entra and keep track of it?
Totally.
Yeah, that's
I can
great.
see the full inventory.
I like to make sure that my agents aren't going rogue, so I'm glad that you're keeping an eye on them. And you know, it's one less thing I have to worry about. And so the last step here is there's a lot more that I need to think about, and I want to make sure that I have the right posture management in my system. And so the other thing I want to do is specifically go here. Actually, sorry, it's here. And I have security recommendations that come directly from Defender and help me understand when I'm building my system different recommendations that I should take into account in terms of restricting network access and things. And so before I've even deployed this, I have these recommendations so that I can start secure and make sure I'm building the right things while Neta is enforcing the policies around this. And so, great. I think we've got kind of a cool agent to get started with. We've got a good security posture. So I think we should maybe look at kind of the next steps here. And so let's talk a little bit about that. So first, let's talk a little bit about kind of what we're showing, because there's a lot of different things going on. So one of the things is, that we find that guardrails are really important. You want to make sure that your system is staying on task and doing what you need it to do. And there's a variety of these that we find are important in real-world applications. And so, we have one specifically focused on quality, ensuring that your agent is staying grounded. Sometimes people call this a hallucination, but the agent is staying true to the data you gave it. We have ones for risk and safety, defending against prompt injection attacks, defending against harmful content, protected materials. These are ones that we've already had, but we've done work to extend them specifically for agents so that they work well in agent scenarios. We also have new ones. So sensitive data and PII are powered in Foundry and through the Purview experience that we showed you. We also recognize that I have agent-specific guardrails that I need. So we mentioned task adherence earlier and making sure that the agent is actually staying on task. And so I have these variety of real-time guardrails that I can put in place. And then, of course, we know every application is different. And so you can create custom guardrails as well. And so to click into kind of two of these examples, prompt shields is a capability that we've already had in Foundry. Many of you use it. And the first thing that prompt shields defend against are direct attacks. And those are attacks coming through the user interface. But as soon as you start doing things like RAG, you care about indirect attacks too, attacks coming from documents or coming in the data. Now, the thing about agents is agents are actually bringing in information from all sorts of places. They can be bringing in things from the tool calls. They can still be bringing in data. They can be bringing in knowledge. And so we've extended Prompt Shield to defend against all of these different surfaces and brought in new techniques. We're releasing at Build Spotlighting, which is an additional layer on top that helps tell the model that this might be an untrusted source, for example, coming from a tool, and helps make it defend better against these different types of attacks. And so this is an example where we've extended this to work specifically for agents. Then we've added new capabilities like task adherence that make sure that the agent is staying on task. It enables you to block the agent if it goes off task or escalate to a human, depending on what makes sense for your application. And so these are the different types of guardrails we're building. So now I've put my system in place. The next step is to make sure we evaluate it. And so again, we have multiple roles to play here. As the developer, I'm probably the person that's actually running the evaluations, looking at the quality of my system, making sure it's working well. But a compliance officer is going to care a lot about those evaluations as well. And so they have a role to make sure that they actually make sense. And so we're going to go and review this together here. And so let me go here. OK, so we are now going to show you how we evaluate our system. And the first thing I need to do is actually go over into my code here. And so I'm building an agent. I want to make sure I'm evaluating for agent-specific things. And so we've developed new agent evaluators. And the agent evaluators have me look for these important agent properties. So I want to make sure that the agent is understanding what my intent actually is. And so I have an intent resolution evaluator. I also have a task adherence evaluator, making sure it's staying on. But there's also other ways it can go wrong. It can call the wrong tools. And so I have a tool called accuracy here. I also want to evaluate if it's defending against attacks and defending against code vulnerabilities and different things. So I want to look at these many different dimensions. And so I've got these evaluators, and I can run this and evaluate my system. Now, this takes some time to run, and so we're going to actually go over and look at a previous example here in my system. And so we've been evaluating our agent. Let me go to my report here. So this is one we were running earlier today. And so you can see I've run all of these different tasks while the agent is loading. And so I can see, like, OK, my agent is doing all right. About 83% of the time, it's understanding my intent. About 70% of the time, it's staying on task. 60% of the time, it's kind of accurately calling the tools. And I can dive into the data and look at this more. And so I can look at a particular example here where it doesn't understand, actually a particular example here where it's not staying on task. And I can read our description will help you understand why the agent didn't stay on task and what it's doing here. Now, the other thing I noticed is the system does not seem to have any examples where it's failing attacks. And so maybe my system is doing great and it's defending against all the indirect attacks, but I should probably be a little bit suspicious that maybe I'm not testing it hard enough here. And so I guess, Mehrnoosh, I kind of did what made sense to me, but is there more I should be testing for here?
Well, the beauty of this integrations with Credo and 𝗦𝗽𝗀 is I can take a look at these and see how they have mapped the risk to our Azure AI Foundry evaluations. And I can take a look here, for example, and see the risk in this risk library. Then I can click on evaluation and can see that evaluation plans are automatically loaded for me. And I can activate the ones that I want, can take a look at what measurements are covered here. And as a part of that activation, I can choose for Azure AI Foundry to even generate adversarial data for me. And notice that
that's great, because I don't have a lot of adversarial data, right? I'm using my system like it's supposed to. I don't know what attackers are going to do.
Exactly. And the great thing about this is also the red teaming pack is being activated, which means that I'm hopefully going to give you and pass you some guidance from this platform as what exactly needs to be measured alongside with the data. So we put the project ID, and now my evaluation script is being generated.
You didn't change screens.
Oh,
sorry.
So sorry, folks.
Let's do it again. All right, so we ended up on the risk. And now I have the mapping of all the risks to evaluations in this view. I can take a look at the evaluation plans that are activated based on the risk that was selected for me. I can activate any of these, and the great thing about it is I can see what things or what areas it's going to test my application for. Again, all of those are mapped to the risk we saw earlier. So here I can see that the red teaming pack has been identified as my evaluation plan. I can activate it, and I can choose for that to also use Azure AI Evaluation SDK to simulate data via AI red teaming agent. And then can put in my project string, and now to download this notebook that then I can pass to you, my developer team, to hopefully run it and provide me with some evidence that is relevant for me to review.
Awesome. So I've got the notebook that you sent me over here, so we can look at this. So this is great. You've actually generated all the code I need to start running my red teaming against my system, which is great because I am not a red teaming expert. I really am not great at attack strategies. And so, what we have here is the ability for the system to actually allow you to set up a red teaming agent. We can support many, many different attack strategies. In this case, the governance tool has identified these for us. And so here, it's going to specify the categories that we want to test for different risks, and then also the different types of attack strategies. So here, I'm looking at testing for both easy, moderate, and difficult things, because this is what Mehrnoosh has recommended to me. And this one will then role play attacks. Now, it also takes a little time to run, so we're going to go back to looking at the specific example here in our system. And so if I go right here, sorry, folks, if I go here, what I can see is that I have a red teaming report that we ran a little bit earlier, and this shows how many attacks are getting through in my system. So I can see that there's about 11% of attacks that are successful. I can look at the different types of attacks, so it looks like I have some more work to do specifically around violent content here. I might want to adjust the guardrails according to that. I can also dive into the specific data so I can see which attacks are successful. So for example, these are base 64 type attacks that are getting through, so quite an interesting thing that goes in, but it's confusing my system, and so I can use this to adjust. Now, I guess, Mehrnoosh, I've got this report card of how my system's doing. Is this enough, right? Am I ready to ship? Can you kind of help me understand?
Yeah, the great thing is I see what you see. So I can see the report of what exactly is out there from your view. So we have similar views here. And I can review it. And yes, I can approve this for production. I feel like the new version that you provided to me, the risk defect rates are low. So let's go ahead and deploy it. Yep.
Awesome. OK, so great. So that's the second step. We're going to test, we're going to evaluate, and we have the role of both helping prescribe the right evaluations for me to run as the developer, both the risk, safety, quality, but also the adversarial evaluation, so I know I'm really trying to break my system. And then, as Mehrnoosh showed you, she's able to review them directly in her governance tool through the integrations in Foundry. Now, oops, we're going in the wrong direction. So as I mentioned, there's a variety of values when we look at. So we've already had quality evaluators, looking at if the system's staying grounded, looking at if the system is coherent or fluent. But we also need to look at risks and safety dimensions. Right? I don't want a system that's potentially producing copyright materials or vulnerable code. And so we have built-in evaluators in our evaluator library for all of these categories. And we've just released the new evaluators that we showed you, specifically focused on intent resolution and tool call accuracy and task adherence. So I can actually go and see how well these are working. And of course, we also support custom evaluators. And so if we dive in a little bit to kind of talk about these evaluators for agents, I can go and see these different dimensions. And so if we talk about what an agent's going to do, right? An agent's going to understand what a user wants. So if I say I want the weather now, it's got to understand what do I want. And that's the intent resolution. And so that's the new evaluator we have. Then it's got to call some different tools to do the job. And so maybe it needs to figure out my location and my time of day and everything. And then maybe it has to put that into a weather API. And so we want to make sure that the agent is picking the right tool for the job. And so this is our tool call accuracy evaluator. Then I want to make sure that the agent is staying on task. I want to make sure it completes the task. And I also want to make sure it didn't do anything else. And so these are other evaluators we've added, and we'll continue to extend this. But as you can see, these are new types of risks specifically that agents bring. So now we've got a good system. We've evaluated it. The fun part happens, right? We actually get to deploy it, and people get to use it. And so there's more to do here, too, across the different roles. I want to make sure that I'm monitoring my agent and actually working the way I expect. I'm going to keep an eye out for any sort of security alerts in my system. But I don't want to do that alone. I am certainly not an expert in security alerts. And so I'm going to work with my security team to investigate threats more deeply and make sure that we're keeping data secure. And so with that, let's go and look at what this actually looks like in our system today. So the first thing I want to do is go back. Go back over to my code here. and put on my screen for you all to see. And earlier I'd set up these evaluators. And now what I want to do is I can take these same evaluators, and sorry, there's a bunch of code here that was not going to look at, and I can actually deploy them as continuous evaluators to observe my system. So I don't want to just look at them pre-deployment, I want to look at them post-deployment. And so here what I'm actually doing is setting the system up to evaluate this, and I can go to the bottom here of my very long bit of code and actually show you that I'm running these different evaluators in real time. And so when my agent is making calls, we're doing evaluations, so I can go and monitor my system. And of course, looking at how we call it is interesting, but what we want to do is go here and actually look at this in action. And so I now have a monitoring dashboard, so this is new as part of Foundry observability, and all of those different metrics I set up, I can see how my agent is doing in practice. So I can see if it's adhering to the task, and if it's actually providing relevance. And if I don't like what I'm seeing here, I can actually go in and start tracing specific agent calls. And so I can look at a particular call here, I can see the scores of how it was doing, and I can decide if I want to dive in more and actually trace the exact behavior of this, so I can start debugging maybe where it went wrong and what I want to do differently. Now, the other thing is, obviously there's just the agent chugging along and hopefully working in as intended, but people might also be trying to attack my agent and misdirect it. And so I can go here and look at risk and safety alerts, and I can see what is actually happening here and see if there's anything that I need to pay attention to. And so we've plugged Defender into our system, and so it is monitoring our behavior. Oh, sorry, folks. We have a issue there, and so we're going to go over here. And so what I can see is I activated prompt shields earlier as one of my guardrails. Prompt shields is successfully defending against different jailbreak attempts that are happening, but it's also warning me because, as we know, you don't want to give an adversary endless time, right? It's blocking it now, but they might find a way to get around. And so what we are doing here is detecting these attacks and enabling me to see them. Now, the issue is, this is great, but I don't really know what to do about it. And so, Neta, can you help me understand if this is just someone playing around or if this is a real issue?
Oh, totally. So here in Defender, you can see that also a multi-incident was created. And this incident, whoop, sorry, let's go back one.
You're good.
It didn't load. Here. So here in Defender, you can also see that a multi-incident was created. And if we go into it, we can see that this incident has a jailbreak attempt here. So we can see exactly what happened, what were the activities, what were the model was used, what was the investigation step that I need to take, what are the related activities. And I can also see the exact, the MITRE attack, the alert description, and all the details about it. And I can also see the suspicious segment of the prompt. Give me a second to get to it. You can also see that it's enriched with the entity name, remediation status, and all the information. And I can see that additional attacks were happened, because usually it's not just one. We can see that there's a suspicious ASCII smuggling, which is an indirect prompt injection that happened. I can see there was a user phishing attempt. And I can decide, for example, to block a user or to suspend a user to stop using that agent. Now, that's how you see the threat protection and stuff like that. With the new Purview integration, we can also see how the data is flowing into this agent. We can also see here that there is a new Azure AI Foundry. Okay. I'm trying, this doesn't, here we go. You can also see that there is an Azure AI Foundry here, category. And it has, we can see that the data compliance policy are here. We can see there were unethical instances found. And we can see additional top interactions that were done with the users and the prompt activities and response. We can also drill down in the Activity Explorer and see that there was sensitive data interaction. Remember our policy? We can see exactly that there were credit card numbers, and everything, how the data is flowing into this agent. Now, which screen is this one? Now, if we want to recap, then what we introduced is we introduced a new Entra agent ID that enable us to give every agent an identity, enable us to reduce the agent sprawl, enable developers secure by design, they don't have to do anything, and enable security teams to see the full inventory and to see the agents and to provide them access management and governance. And this is just the first step of Entra agent ID. We also saw that Purview is now extended to Azure AI Foundry and support custom Azure AI application and agents. We provide data security risk and governance and compliance to those agents and application in Azure AI Foundry. And Defender enables you to start secure and stay secure. You can see your poster recommendation, see the vulnerabilities, the misconfiguration, and see the threat detection and alerts during runtime to protect your application. And it now supports more than 15 detection, generative AI, new detection like wallet attack, ASCII smuggling, jailbreak, and additional detections. And with that, I'd like to call Gerald to share how, as a customer, he's using all this. Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you much, Neta. I'm Gerald. I'm Managing Director at Commerzbank, and I'm responsible for different digital products and our advertise project. And today, I'm not alone, but together with my new colleague, Eva, we will show how does it look like to use content safety in a real application, a customer-facing manner. But first of all, let's see where do we come from. So Commerzbank is one of the leading banks in Germany for medium-sized companies and a very strong partner for private and small business clients. We have more than 400 branches and offer a wide range of digital products and services. The strategic transformation of our business model into digitalization is one of our top priorities in the bank, and artificial intelligence and LLM is one of the key components. Therefore, the Avatar is our lighthouse project for AI. But now, let's have a look does it look like to speak with Eva?
Hallo, ich bin Ava, Ihre virtuelle Assistentin. Ich bin in der Startphase und kann Ihnen für den Anfang bei ersten Banking-Themen weiterhelfen. Welches Thema interessiert Sie?
Ich würde gerne eine neue Kreditkarte bestellen.
Vielen Dank für Ihr Anliegen. Ich habe verstanden, dass Sie eine neue Karte beantragen möchten. Zu welchem Konto wollen Sie die Karte bestellen?
Gerne für das Klassikkonto.
Sie können eine der folgenden 8 Karten bestellen, die Ihnen auf Ihrem Bildschirm angezeigt werden. Bitte nennen Sie mir die Karte, die Sie nun bestellen möchten.
Gerne die Visa Classic.
Die Karte wird für Ihr Klassikkonto bestellt. Sie haben die Visa Classic für 39,90 € pro Jahr ausgewählt. Wenn Sie damit einverstanden sind, sagen Sie bitte, ja, ich stimme zu, und ich sende Ihnen die Fototan zu.
Ja, ich stimme zu. Danke, Ava. Mit Ava geht's so schnell und einfach wie noch nie. Und wenn ich doch mal einen Experten brauche, leitet Ava mich weiter.
I actually found it to be very easy to navigate. Ava is very responsive and just fun to use.
It felt like I was speaking to an actual bank employee. She could handle all of my requests with ease, and I was done in no time. It was really fun.
I like that it's easy to find and things are explained straight to the point.
For me, the visualization of the required information is really useful, and she looks like a real person just on my phone.
So we introduced Ava the first time here in Seattle in November 2023. And right now we went live 1 month ago, and this is the result of an amazing project work together with our partner Microsoft. So you see we offer with Ava an human-like interaction. We are able to answer questions concerning banking and products in a general manner, but we are also able to answer customer-specific questions like interest rates for a specific account. In addition, we are able and capable to do first end-to-end transactions like credit card change, credit card limit change, or blocking, unblocking credit cards. And these transactions are secured via a second factor via the phototon process. And concerning of the topic, we are able to hand over to a colleague in our advisory center. Let's have a look what's behind. So first of all, we have the large language model. Then we have the digitalized person, which is a German actress, by the way. Then we have banking knowledge and backend applications. And as also Sarah mentioned, monitoring and reporting is very essential here, which is done via Fabric. And one of the main parts is definitely content safety and evaluation. And so let's have a deeper look here. Imagine you have several thousand of different customer requests, and you have to decide in real time whether you would like and are able to answer the request, or you have to block the conversation. And for this, we are using the complete framework here, which is offered via content safety. So the first line of defense is the prompt and prompt engineering. And then we are using the 5 standard categories with the jailbreak, and this was mentioned several times today. Then we have hate, sexual, violence, self-harm, and different customer categories like role play or manipulation. And each of those levels is adjusted in different manners to come to the results and to comply with the requirements of our company for the different outputs which we would like to answer or not allowed to answer. Depending on this, we are forwarding the request to the LLM, or we are blocking the conversation and using a predefined answer. In addition, for some, let's say, very sensitive topics, we are directly interacting, and for this one, we are using agents in a 24/7 manner. So all in all, you see we have a new customer interaction, or to speak with the words of our board member, Thomas Schaufler, we are setting a new standard in digital banking. Thank you very much for your attention, and back to Sarah.
Amazing. Amazing. I think that that's just absolutely incredible work. You know, we can build all the tools, and our dream is that people actually put them into practice and applications like this that, you know, change people's lives. And so really, really cool to actually see, make something so important, you know, personal finance, easier for people to do. And this is exactly the point, is we want to give people the tools. And, you know, we've been working for a long time with Commerzbank, and we've been working specifically with Foundry to give the right tools for developers. But, you know, what we really wanted to show you today is that it's not enough to just give guardrails evaluations for developers. It really is a team sport. And so the new pieces we've added are these deep integrations with Microsoft security tools, as well as different third-party governance tools to allow you to bring your whole team to work to solve these agent challenges. And this is just the beginning. We'll be bringing lots more for agent-specific scenarios into this, but also for your AI systems, because, well, we spent a lot of time today so far talking about agents. A lot of this is stuff you're going to want to do for your AI systems anyway. It's just that agents makes it feel more urgent, and so we're really seeing, you know, people come forward with that, but all of this is actually important. And so, you know, we think that AI and agents can help make everyone more satisfied, more productive, allow organizations to achieve new levels of innovation. But I showed you the trust gap earlier, and if we don't get this right, people are not going to let us actually use this technology, right? I don't want to work alongside technology that I don't trust. And so it's really important that we take tools like this and a thoughtful approach like we see with Commerzbank and put them together to build a complete end-to-end story of an AI system that we've built responsibly and we've deployed responsibly. And so, you know, what we have here today is a lot of different sessions where you can go deeper on all of these parts. The one I really want to call out is that a huge part of this story, and we showed you a little bit today, is observability, right? If you don't evaluate, you don't monitor, it's really challenging to make sure that your system is doing the right thing. And so tomorrow, Mehrnoosh and other colleagues are going to be doing a session on observability. So I recommend that you check that out to go a lot deeper in evals and monitoring and everything around that. But we've got also other great things. We're giving a demo on the red teaming agent tomorrow as well. I love the red teaming agent. It's really fun to be able to quickly red team things. So definitely have you check all of those out. The other thing is we have a lot of QR codes for you, because it turns out that this takes a lot of pieces, right? And so it's not just Foundry. It's getting security governance right with Purview. It's getting security posture management and threat management with Defender. And so all of these different pieces, and ID with Entra, all of these different pieces come together to help us start building a trustworthy agent ecosystem. And so if you want to follow up on any of these, we've made all of the different links for you. And you can, of course, do into any of that. So with that, please fill out our session survey, give us feedback. We always want to show you the most useful things. And we have a little bit of extra time, so I'm happy to kind of take any questions that folks have. But yes, and please thank Commerce Bank and my great partners in making this happen.